you can build a website that looks like dynamic because you can search, filter, paginate, etc., but it's static.
Welcome to Static Feedback, the podcast all about static websites, brought to you by Cloud Cannon. Today we're joined by Otero, who is the lead maintainer of Loom. It's a static site generator for Deno. So excited to have Oscar here today and find out all things about Loom. Welcome.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Great to have you. So let's start off with what inspired you to create Loom?
Lume is a reflection of my experience working with static sites. I think I remember the first static site I used was Middleman many years ago because we had a client that used it for his website, so we had to learn it. And this was the first time I could see how a simple idea of having a data file and a template and put it together, and you can create a website with that. It's a very simple and minimal idea, but very powerful and flexible because you are not limited by a database or a data structure. You can create your own structure in YAM, JSON, or whatever format you want. And it's very great. So I'm immediately falling in love of this way to create websites. I will also use Jekyll for some personal projects, but Middleman and Jekyll requires Ruby, and I'm not familiarized with Ruby. I always had issues installing Ruby in my computer, especially in Mac.
Everyone goes through that.
Okay, I'm not the only. So I started looking for new options, especially in JavaScript. I discovered Method Smith that I found it very interesting because it reminds me a lot of Gulp. And Gulp is, for me, it's a beautiful piece of software because the API is very elegant, very minimal, beautiful. So in fact, Lume has a lot of inspiration in Gulp. How do you install the plugins? And some API from Lume is very similar to Gulp. And then I discovered 11T by Thak that I think is worked with you, no? Thak is
we just had that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Thak Liederman.
Me too.
And I use 11T becomes my new favorite static site generator. I use it for a lot of projects, but I don't like nodes. The problem is nodes, especially npm. I'm like to work with web standards, standard web APIs, and Node has its own way to do some things, especially everything related with npm, installing package, require CommonJS, Node modules with thousands of files. When I discovered Deno with a new approach, more similar to web standards, and I immediately decide that it will be the JavaScript runtime that I will use since then. So this is the origin of Lume. I try to reflect all this experience. It has a bit of Metal Smith or Gulp. It has Middleman, Jekyll, of course, 11T, but also with some personal or some ideas, some of my own ideas. I try to innovate something, not only port what I knew. And for example, the way that Lume treats the data, how it's loaded, and the shared data, the concept of shared data that you can share um, um, with other pages, and how the cascade of shared data behaves. I think a lot of people likes this simple concept. The use of generators, JavaScript generators to generate dynamic page, very easy to use. The concept of processors, preprocessors. You can manage HTML files with using the DOM API with get element by ID or something like that. Yeah, it has a lot of personal, my own ideas, but has been inspired by all those libraries.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Let's dig into the HTML processes. I'm curious how people are using that.
For example, if you want to convert all external links, adding a target blank attribute, it's very easy to do that. It's only 2 lines of code in the config TypeScript in the config file, and so. I have to say that I am a designer. People maybe not all people knows that, but my primary job is a designer, the job that pay my bills. I also can code, obviously, but when I'm writing code, my mind is always thinking about user experience. Is this enough, simple enough? Will people understand it? How can make this more simple, etc.? So when I create Lume, I want to put all my mind of designer in this generator. No? It makes the static site generator more simpler, flexible, easy to understand, and so this is what I try to do.
Yeah, no, you can definitely see that throughout Loom. Just that thought for the developer experience has been put first and foremost. It makes the HTML processor, the link example. It makes me think of often people use JavaScript to add an external link icon to any links that are going outside of the domain of the site, which is okay, but ideally you don't need to do that client side. And using an HTML preprocessor, is it preprocessor or post processor? It's post processor.
This is processor.
Processor.
Yeah, or another example is for example for web components. You can create web components and in the processor convert these web components to another thing for all browsers. I don't know. There's a lot of use cases.
Yeah, really powerful. So what are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome in creating Loom?
Probably make it worse on Deno. It's funny because I create this static site to run away from Node and try Deno. But and Deno is a great runtime. I'm very happy with it. But when I started working on Lume, I wanted to use all these libraries that people use. I want to use PostCSS and Sass for styling. I want to use SVGO to optimize SVG files. Obviously, templates like Nunjax, like Pug, all that stuff. And this package only works on Node, sorry. So I had to clone all this package, modify the code to make it work on Deno. And every time that a new version was released, I had to update my clone with the changes. And well, it was I think it was very, especially for some packages were very hard to make work on Deno. I created scripts and tools that help me to automatize this process, but it was a lot of work. And then when Deno started to support npm package, that is a very controversial decision. That it helped me. Unless I could stop to do this heavy work. Not all package work on Deno, so I still had to make some changes, especially for Tailwind and SAS, but because dependency of a dependency of a dependency didn't work, so I had to fix that. But now I step to one or two libraries, everything works fine on Deno with all npm packages work fine on Deno.
Yeah, interesting. Like the whole ecosystem has completely changed your workflow.
Yeah, and sometimes, for example, for Tailwind, I think Lume was the only library that I know that allows to use Tailwind on Deno. Now you can simply import Tailwind and it works, but for some months, Lume was the only library in Deno that allows to use Tailwind, because I had a fork of Tailwind with small tweaks to fix it. So it's very, very hard work.
Interesting. So the real challenges of Loom is managing that outer layer around Loom to get all the dependencies you would kind of expect from a static site generator.
Yeah, Lume has a very holistic view of what is built a static site. How when you create a static site, you are not generating HTML and things like so. So you have to do a lot of different tasks. Styling is one task. JavaScript bundling these are another tasks, but there are other tasks like SEO, minimal optimizations, or open graph image, or creating a sitemap. I don't know. There are a lot of different things that Lume tries to make it simple. In the same static site, in the same software.
So how do you make that decision of whether something should be part of Loom or whether it should be a plugin that the community either needs to build or integrate?
It depends. A lot of people are asking me about, can you make a plugin to support this library?
Yeah.
Everyone wants to have support for all libraries in the world. And it's hard because I don't want to create two plugins that do the same thing with different libraries. But I have some plugins, for example, Lightning CSS to highlight the code, and Prism, another library that do exactly the same. But in general, I try to avoid to have two plugins to do the same. But some people, there are some libraries that both are popular, both has its users. For example, React and Preact. Some people prefer React or Preact, so I have both plugins. But it's hard. I had a secondary repository with experimental plugins. So when people want to create a plugin, instead of including in Lume as official plugin of Lume, I put it in this secondary repository, so people can still using it, because in Deno you don't have to, you can import a plugin from a URL, so it's easy to use it. And if after some testing, if the plugin works well, and I think, okay, this can be useful for more people, and so I include it in Lume, in the main repo. But any new plugin that I add to Lume is more work to maintain. You have to maintain the plugin, and so I try to limit the number of plugins.
Yeah, it makes sense, because the more plugins you have to maintain, the less you can actually work on Loom itself. It's a tricky balance.
Yeah, there are a lot of plugins. I don't know how many are now, but maybe 20, 30, I don't know. It's enough.
Well, are those plugins useful for other Deno projects, or are they only useful for Loom?
Yeah, they are only for Loom. Sometimes when people want to do something very complicated, I always recommend to create a library, a standalone library, and then create a plugin to use this library. So the library can be used for other frameworks or using standalone.
Yeah.
But the most plugins in Lume, the code is very simple because it's only using another library.
Got it. So how else do you see the community contribute to Loom?
We have a small but loyal community. We have a nice server on Discord where we talk about Lume, creating a static site. We share cats videos and more other important things. Yeah, it's very. I'm very proud of the community that Lume has, and it's great. People are welcome to join us. There are other people that contribute more actively, that creating codes or creating plugins, doing pull requests, fixing bugs, etc. So it's great to have help here. The documentation page is, for example, as I say before, I am designer, so the UX is very important for me. So when I when I see that Lume was getting some traction, my priority was the website. I wanted to create a website, a documentation, very good, because I think that it affects a lot to use a software or not, the documentation. So, but my English is not very well, so I think I spend more time writing, designing also, but writing the documentation, that writing the codes of Lume. And then I had, thanks a lot, many pull requests, fixing the docs, and fixing typos, but also explaining the things better. And I'm very proud about the documentation we have now. People is always congratulating me about the documentation, so it's nice. And we have some people that donate money. That there is something that I didn't expect. This started like a side project. I didn't expect to make money with that. But one day, a guy told me, "Okay, I love your project. How can I donate money?" Because I don't know. I don't have anything for that. So I create a open collective page for people that don't want to use a GitHub sponsor. That is also possible. I'm amazed about how people give your money, not because they are not buying something, but only to say thank you for your work, and that's great.
Yeah, really cool. I think it shows that tight knit community that really cares about the project. You can see it. um,
Yeah.
so we talked a little bit about how you decide what to work on in Loom in terms of plugins versus core functionality. How else do you make decisions about which features to build in Loom?
I'm working now in the second version of Lume, Lume.2.0, and it's the second major version. Um, I'm taking this opportunity to fix some design decisions that I took in the Lume one that maybe the time proved that it wasn't good decisions. Simplify APIs, some magic behind how the URLs are generated that some people don't understand. Or so I'm trying to fix that in Lume 2. It has also a couple of new features. For example, a lot of people wanted to put all the content in a folder, for example, the content folder, and put all post articles there, but they don't want the content word appears in the final URL.
Mm.
So in Lume 2, after listening the users, I decided to implement a way to modify how a folder affect to the final URL. So you can change the name only for this folder or remove the name so the folder doesn't appear. And very flexible, and I think a lot of people will like the new
Mm.
feature. Um, I want to change also the template engine. The default template engine Lume 1 is Nunjax, that is great, but it has some problems in Deno, especially async functions. So I create Bento is a different template engine. It's available already in Lume as a plugin, but in Lume 2 will be enabled by default. So I hope the people will like. I think it's listening people. I try to understand the needs. A lot of people are asking only for features. They want a feature, they want an option to do this, option to do that. But I try to understand why do you want this feature, and maybe the solution is not this feature, is another global feature or behavior or whatever that not only fix your feature, but maybe different features can be fixed with the same. The processors, for example, is born as something like that. A lot of people wanted to customize how the websites, how the HTML files were output. So, okay, instead of creating a lot of options to customize that, I invented the concept of processor, so you can run a function and you can tweak all what you want.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah, no, that's an exciting roadmap. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that play out. I love that
Yeah.
thinking around the feature development as well, where you're really trying to understand the problem. What use cases do you see Loom? Like, who's using Loom and what are they using it for?
Yeah, mainly blogs and personal projects, documentation. There is a website of a video games company, corporative websites, and things like that. I think anything that you can build in static that you don't need a backend can be built on Lume because, for example, one thing that a lot of other static sites have is the concept of collections. You can create collections of posts, articles, or whatever. In Lume, there is no collections because it requires that you have to create the collection before using it. So in Lume, there is a simple function, the search function, that you can search any page using a simple query. You build, so this is very flexible because you can build a lot of, you can build a website that looks like dynamic because you can search, filter, paginate, etc. With this function, with the search function, but it's static, works like a static. So I think that the use case is very big. You can build anything that that you want, even you don't need if you don't need a backend to that.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, it's almost like treating your files like a database, rather than kind of a set collection from the start. Really, really flexible.
Yeah, I have a very old website about typography that I created 20 years ago. Well, not 20, no, 15. I'm not so old. And it was a website with a database about typographies, classification. You could search fonts by designer, by style, by period, time period, etc. And I had a lot of problems with the website because the database sometimes stopped, so the website broke. I have to reboot the server, and it was a very old website that I don't keep updated, but I want to keep it online because some people use it. So for example, if you want a website online, but you don't want to care about maintaining, and so a static site is the best solution because it always works. So I rebuilt the website using Loom. It has a lot of database queries, and so I rebuilt it using Loom. And it was a multi-language website in addition to that. And now works in static, and everybody can use it, and it's hosted for free. So it's a win-win. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's,
yeah,
you can leave that for another 15 years and it will still work.
yeah. So
Nice. If people are interested in using Loom or contributing to Loom, how can they do that?
well, they can join to Discord if they want to know the community. Of course, I like to start the project on GitHub, especially because this gives it more visibility. Or in the website, we have a testimonial section. So if anyone want to tweet or X, or I don't know how to say that, or toot in Mastodon, is toot. Yeah.
I think so,
yeah, and write a post or article or whatever. And if they want to be in the testimonial section of my website, especially if they talk well about Lume, they will. I will put them. Or sending examples. We have a showcase section in the website. I like to see what people do with Lume, what people share with Lume. Sometimes it's very good projects, and I like to, no matter if the code is public or not, some projects has the code public or not. I don't care about that. But it's great to show the people what you can do with Lume.
Agreed. It's really cool seeing those projects. Yeah, we've been using Loom for the Cloud Cannon documentation, and we've been loving it. It's just a really fresh approach to SSGs, and yeah, I want to thank you for coming on today and sharing how Loom came to be and what we can be excited about in the future. So thanks for joining, Oscar.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. If you need help in your website for upgrading to Lume 2, please let me know because I can help you.
Awesome. Yeah, we will. All right, thanks. That's it for today's episode. You can find more at YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.